Final segment of the show here on KC's Corner as we tie up some loose ends and get you ready for your weekend. And yes, Auntie Trish, we are starting with boxing. You know I got to talk boxing because there was a big matchup that took place last Saturday night. Well, Sunday night for some of those who are in certain parts of the country. But Canelo Alvarez knocked out Sergey Kovalev in the 11th round of their light heavyweight matchup on Saturday night. And yeah, like I said, for some people it was Sunday morning, which was a complete embarrassment in itself. We'll talk about that a little later on. But Canelo knocked out Kovalev to capture a portion of the light heavyweight title, and now he holds belts in three weight classes currently: the light heavyweight division, the middleweight division, and the super middleweight division. Look, man, when you talk about Canelo Alvarez, he is definitely one of the greats we've seen in this era, no doubt about it. But at the same time, I got people talking about him being number one pound for pound and that his resume is unmatched. And I don't see it that way. I don't see it that way. He has a good resume, but Canelo has a lot of names on his resume. But the issue that I have with that is, number one, the fights with these big name fighters have pretty much all exclusively been on the downside of said fighter's career, best case scenario. More times than not, they're completely washed, as we saw in the case with Kovalev this past Saturday night. Kovalev is done. I told you guys last weekend Canelo was going to take him apart. All right, Kovalev is finished. And surprisingly, Kovalev was ahead on my scorecard going into that 11th round, and he was outboxing Canelo Alvarez, but he had nothing left. He was pitter-pattering around. Once Canelo walked him down and tracked him down, Kovalev is done. The man's been knocked out in 3 of his last 5 fights now. So that's one situation. He fights all these guys on the tail end of their career and when they're washed. 2, he fights guys that are considerably smaller than him. See Amir Khan and Liam Smith. And that's just not going to get it done. I'm not giving him that pass. Canelo hasn't taken the challenge of fighting another young fighter in their prime in years. And that's my biggest knock on him. He's got other top flight guys in and around his weight class. When you talk about a Demetrius Andre, when you talk about a Jamel Charlo, when you talk about a Caleb Smith, when you talk about a Caleb Plant, and he refuses to look their way. And he does that in favor of fighting 37-year-old Sergey Kovalev or a tomato can like Rocky Field. Nah, man, no. I'm not giving him that pass. I ain't doing it. Canelo is nice, but he won't get full respect from me as an all-time great or as the greatest fighter of this era, as they try to proclaim him to be, until he takes on fighters that aren't washed. Bottom line. And speaking of this argument of greatest fighter of his era, or quote-unquote the face of boxing, as they've tried to call him a few times before, how embarrassing was it that DAZN decided not to start the Canelo fight until after the UFC fight between Nate Diaz and Jorge Masvidal was over? It was a complete and utter embarrassment. And because of that decision, they ended up having Canelo and Kovalev sitting around in their dressing room, laying on their couch, literally taking naps, waiting for about an hour and a half for that fight to finish so they can go on. They didn't start their fight until 1:18 a.m. Sunday morning on the East Coast. A complete and utter embarrassment, and something that a true face of boxing would never go through. Floyd Mayweather would never in his life, never have played second fiddle and wait for some UFC fight between fighters with a combined 20 plus losses on their resume to finish their fight before he started his fight. It would never happen. So like I said, Canelo, and I like Canelo. I like him, but I got to keep it a stack. Canelo, Golden Boy, and DAZN should all be completely and utterly embarrassed for that farce that took place with how they had to wait for the UFC to finish to get their job done. It was embarrassing, absolutely embarrassing. Changing gears one more time before I get up out of here. It is playoff time in Sacramento for high school football, and the first round of the playoffs kicks off tonight all around the region. There are plenty of the top teams in the area who aren't playing that are on first round buys. You got your Folsom, you got your Indicums, you got your Oak Ridges, Consumnes Oaks, to name a few. So there will be a number of big games coming up next week in the second round, but there are some really good games in round one. You got the number 12 seed in Division One, Pleasant Grove, going to the number 5 seed Monterey Trails at MT, obviously. I think whose only loss on the season was a 1-point loss to Consumnes Oaks when you talk about Monterey Trail. I think they take care of business rather easily and move on to a second round showdown against number 4 seed St. Mary's of Stockton. So there's that. I got on the list here. Yeah, we got another game of note in Division One. Number 6 seed Davis, who ended up winning the Delta League Championship with a win over Consumnes Oaks last week on the road. They'll take on Gregory in their first round matchup. Should be easy work for Davis, and that'll set up a showdown between Davis and number 3 Inderkum in round 2, and what could be the game of the week next week in round 2 of the playoffs, right there with Inderkum and Davis. That is a great matchup right there. I definitely want to see that. In Division 2, the only matchup that really stands out to me in this opening week of playoffs is number 8 Lincoln going up against number 9 Whitney, where if Whitney can pull off the mini upset here, that would set up a huge rivalry game showdown against number 1 seed in Division 2 Rockland that will have the entire city of Rockland completely shut down next Friday while those two teams face each other in a rivalry game, in a regional battle. So I definitely want to see that, and I'm definitely hoping that goes down. I think next week I'll try and chase down our guy Keith Jorganagos and see if we can get him to come on here and lend his high school sports expertise to break down round 2 of the CIF playoffs here on Casey's Corner. So we'll be all over that, and that's what you got to look forward to in high school football this week. So that's all the time I have for today. I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to me. Shout out to my man Marvell. Shout out to Mr. Stone, the inspiration always. RIP to the fallen general. Shout out to Jazz, my music producer and the show producer, for taking care of business and making sure we run smoothly here today. Big ups to CB Communications as always. I see you doing your thing. And big ups to you guys. I appreciate you guys taking the time out to listen. We are going to leave you now with a little Jodeci, Come and Talk to Me, the remix, here as we get up out of here. And I will see y'all next week. Same time, same station. Y'all be good. Have a great weekend. I'm up out of here. Peace.
Are y'all finished or y'all done? I ain't got no more talking.